Hey, it's AT time. My name is Ron Freeman, and today on Animation Trainers, we're doing another of our ASMR animation sessions in which I will be talking about animating character animation directly in Unreal Engine 5 on a control rig. And to make sure you don't miss any of the other videos that we post here on Animation Trainers, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and switch the notification bell to all. And check out the links in the description below to our website and to our Patreon page, where you can participate in 2 one-hour sessions every week for only $1 an hour. So I've got Unreal Engine 5 open here, as you can see. And if you go to File, New Project, and select under Games Third Person and Create, this is going to create this environment for you. And if you go under Content and Characters and then Mannequins and Rigs and then to Control Rig Mannequin Body, I'm going to drag that up here, and once it's placed, you'll see that it automatically creates both an animation outliner in which I'm able to select the individual controls, as well as the character now appears in the outliner of the scene. So one of the first things I like to do is invert the middle mouse pan, which is different from Maya. It works in the opposite direction. So if you open up the editor preferences and just type in this keyword middle, it'll allow you to go to controls, invert middle mouse pan, and that will allow it to behave more like what you might be used to, where it works in the direction you're going the mouse with. You'll also notice that it opened up a sequencer, which is here, and this sequencer basically is a way of being able to apply animation to each of the animation controls on the character. It's kind of like an exposure sheet or dope sheet. And then there is a separate graph editor that you can open, which is here. And I'll bring that onto the screen here. So if you have a curve selected, you can then select that particular controller, and that will show you any keys on it. One of the things that I do when I'm animating is when I'm creating my key poses, I want to select all of the controls that are animatable and bake a key on that frame to make sure that in case I didn't animate on a certain controller at this frame, but then later animate that controller somehow on a different frame later, that could mean that some animation ends up interpolating over the entire course of the scene because it auto sets a key at the beginning of the scene at 0 or something. And so setting a key on everything helps ensure that you are locking that pose that you've spent the time to create. You're kind of locking it in. One of the other things that I like to do is turn this on, which is automatically creating a key whenever you change properties in a channel. The fact of the matter is that you can always undo if you didn't mean to set a key. But if you don't have auto key turned on and you spend all this time creating a pose and then move off the frame before you remember to set a key, then all that work is lost and you can't get that back. In Unreal, if I collapse this controller here, you'll notice that there's a left arrow key and a right arrow key, and then a key button in the middle. If you hit that middle button on any one of these individual ones, it will create a key on that frame for that individual controller. But if you select the key button on this big parent one, that will automatically generate keys on all of the controllers at that frame. And so I find that very useful. Even though I've now baked a key at this frame not doing anything, it's okay because when I adjust the animation, because I have the auto key set to turn on, it's going to remember any of the changes that I make. So let's say I was animating a punch, okay? So first I'm going to go in here and I want to create a pose. Well, so first off, I'm going to turn off all of the snapping. I'm not a fan of it. And so I'm turning that off. By the way, this is where you control whether or not it is moving based on the world or based on local. I like to work locally when possible and only use world if I have more than one controller selected at the same time and want to be able to move everything according to world space. Otherwise, local is, I think, better to work in. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate the character and just basically kind of create a pose. So I can grab, the other thing is instead of grabbing the controllers here in the viewport, you can select them here in the list. The list always populates the same way. And so if I grab the 3 spine controls like this and then counter animate that back like so, something like that, then you get the gist. So I'm going to animate this. I want the neck to be somewhat turned. Oops, sorry. I want the neck to be somewhat turned, and the head is going to be basically facing in the direction that we are moving. I like to grab all of the finger controls and stuff. If you separate out the outliner as a separate window, and you can bring the animation outliner with it, that will allow you to more quickly select those fingers. So for example, here, if I wanted to grab all the individual fingers in the meat part of the hand, in the meat part of the hand, then now I have those selected and I can rotate them all together like so. By the way, if you're having any issues with any updating or whatever, you can always switch from a lit to an unlit or anything that's going to facilitate being able to see those updates better. I know, no wonder this is rotating so weird. It's because, again, it was set to world. So I'll undo back to 0, change the setting to local, and now it's animating on the correct node. And that's why it was taking so long. It wasn't because of the fact that it was lit or unlit. It's because of the fact that I was doing it across 3 axes all at the same time, and that was confusing it. By the way, you'll notice that it kind of seems to be a little better if you bring it in like that or like this. But basically, you can create the pose once you're happy with what's going on there. I always like to animate the arms with 0 rotation on anything except the elbow, because of the fact that the elbow is a hinge joint. Our elbow cannot rotate like this. When we do that, that's actually our shoulder rotating. It's not this. This only goes one way. And so in order to keep the animation clean, and also in order to make sure that I am not creating animation on more than one axis unnecessarily and avoiding gimbal lock by doing so, I will only animate on the Z-axis on the elbows, and basically make sure that I'm applying the rotation to the overall arm in order to get the pose I want, like so. All right. So let's just go in here and, excuse me, create. So when you're manipulating the controllers, if you zoom in here, there will be a way of being able to do, 2 axes at the same time, so that you don't have to do 1 and 1. There are multiple controllers in order to be able to do things like rotate the foot on the ball, etc. So when you're moving those main controllers, make sure that you're grabbing the correct ones. And so once you have your animation, and so let's assume for a second that this pose was how I want the final pose to be. If I scroll back up here and collapse this and just make sure that everything is set there, let's say I want the first pose and the last pose to be the same because it's the 0 pose for a game asset. So if I time out this punch, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, okay, so like a couple seconds. And currently, so if I hit play, 1,000, 2, 1,000, I had something like that. Whoops, went way too far. Let's try again. 1,000, 2, 1,000. Yeah, something like this. We'll make it just 60 frames to be to have a nice round number. So I'll change the frame to 60, or maybe actually to 80, so that we can see a little bit of the before and after. But I'm going to set the end frame to, for some reason in Unreal, when you set the end playback to this, you'll notice that I set it at 61, but if I now click to go to the end, it goes to 60. So that's a little thing in Unreal, is that in order to be able to have, if you want 60 to be your last frame, you should set your end point at frame 61. Okay? So I have animation now. I'm going to click this again, and because there has been no animation changes, I now have this pose again at the end. Okay? So now let's say I go back to the beginning by clicking this, and I go hoot, and so let's say around here is the pose that I want to have be the anticipation. I'll click this here in order to be able to have that kind of an indicator to myself that that's the frame that I want that pose to be on. And then go back here and go, huh? Okay, so let's say frame, or, frame 23 is where the contact is going to be, and then the rest will be a settle. So if I go to this frame, and I now grab controllers and start moving things in order to begin creating this animation. I'm going to grab, again, the grabbing them from the list sometimes is actually even faster. So let's say I'm, animating the shoulder, and this arm is coming up and getting ready to cock and punch. And get in tighter on the rotation there, because the arm's gonna, do the whole punchy thing. And adjust the rotation on the wrist. Alright, because he's getting ready to punch. Whoops. Let's try that again. Boom. I don't know what happened there. Something like that. Let's pretend that this arm is coming up, getting ready to kind of do the whole counter thing. Maybe the knee comes in because the body rotated, and the same thing here, that elbow or that knee is going to go out a little bit because the foot, I actually want that foot to be rotated more anyway. So I'm going to just do this and then do this, but then copy. Well, for one thing, I need to move that elbow, that knee away from the leg so that it'll solve better. But if I want to copy this frame now, I can. You'll notice that here I have that dope sheet. And so what I can do is basically, the way the game engine handles it is that anything before this key is going to be the same up until it comes there. So I can either highlight this and then go to this frame But with this selected, you'll see it's highlighted, hit Control C and then Control V, and it'll paste on the position I'm at. However, I could also just do it that if I had this deleted and there was no frame here, then it's going to assume anything before this frame is that, because the values have not been told to change. So if I just set a key here, it's going to be the same as this anyway, like so. And you'll notice that didn't move, but that did. So same thing here, highlight this, Control C, Control V, and I get that new value there. And then we'll do the same thing here. Again, if I just delete this because there's no new information, it assumes the last one is the correct one, and I just hit Control like that. Now, using that same mentality, if I want to now collapse this list, I can now, if I want to copy this pose to here to animate from, or based on, then I can highlight this collapsed group, Control C, Control V at the correct pose, and now we have a duplicate at that frame. And so here I can go in, select the root, translate it forward, and get the rotation so that that carried through, and that's doing that. Something like this. And probably get some translation going across there. And now we'll rotate the spine. If you ever wanted to just zero out, going up here to this side and hitting that arrow key will rotate out, will zero out those rotations. And then we can get more of that reach because of the punch. Same thing here, bring that down, and in that arm will have carried through. You'll notice I'm only animating on the Z. But now I'm going to go in here and, whoops, there we go. Carry that through. Whoa. I don't know what the heck that is. I don't know why undoing like that always breaks it. Okay. So now I'm going to drag this, get that punch action. And this arm would be back. And obviously I'm not being super polishy right now. This is just about trying to get something that's going to show the process in what's happening in Engine and kind of how it's behaving. And so obviously, like here in this pose, you can, start going in and just manually grabbing and adjusting for timing and position. And obviously you're going to potentially have that dragging and the three spines dragging because of the arm, or starting to come through actually like that, but the arm is still back. And you're getting it higher, so that it's coming at an angle like this, maybe something like that. And just, keep playing with it until you have something you're happy with. I'm going to rotate this like that. Maybe a little edge, a little attitude. And then here, that's looking at us and coming through. And just finagle it however you need to. But then, and then just continue adding keys and adjusting things as you go through and adding overlap accordingly. I'll be going into other details about how to do specific things with character animation in Unreal, but I at least wanted to give a general sense of what the initial workflow might be like in comparison to something like Autodesk Maya. I hope that you've enjoyed this little tutorial, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, then don't forget to like, subscribe, and switch that bell. Or better still, want to start becoming an animator right now for only $1 an hour? Come join us for our weekly ASMR animation fishbowl sessions and our fishbowl feedback sessions where you can submit work and get feedback directly from me. Or would you prefer to have a private session with me where we can discuss how to improve your animation skills working with me directly one-on-one? Then please visit our website at animationtrainers.com and schedule a session with me. My name is Ron Friedman, and I hope that we will see you for our next video here at Animation Trainers. In the meantime, keep it quiet.